I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing round 3 in the Battle of the Books series to discover what was my favorite read from 2022. I have entered in the results from round 2 and we've got our matches for round 3. As always, the same rules apply to this round. 5-star matches against lower ranked matches automatically move on. No DNFs, no rereads are included, nothing below 3 stars. And let's just jump right into it and see what we have. So just a quick reminder also, all of these matchups are randomized by the computer, the website that I use as a random bracket generator. So I did not put these matches together at all. I don't even know who's matched up against who until I read it off in front of the camera. So everything is a complete surprise for y'all. Our first matchup is A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan versus Handful of Souls by Stephen Rice. This one is an automatic move on for Natural History of Dragons with 5 out of 5 stars, and sadly, the end of the road for Handful of Souls. This was a good run. This is book 1 in Stephen Rice's new series. It has really awesome characters, great storyline, and I can't wait to see where the story goes. I only gave this 4 out of 5 stars, but it was such a fun read. I can't wait for book 2. So, Stephen, if you're watching this, get us book 2 ASAP. Our next matchup is The Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham up against, the Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, a 5-star matchup. This is a tough one because I love both of these books so much. This is so hard. Oh my gosh, why did I do this to myself every year? As much as I loved Blackjack, I have to give this one to Jade Legacy because that book was just so freaking good. So Jade Legacy moves on. End of the road for The Legend of Blackjack. But this book, y'all, if you haven't read this book yet, go out and read this book because this was so much fun. This is like a YA portal fantasy adventure story. It's got great characters, a great story, and the plotline is amazing, and it's just so heartwarming and fantastic. I talk about it all the time. I recommend it all the time. If you haven't read The Legend of Blackjack yet, go read that and then go and get The Tale of the Border Knight, which is a novella, a companion novella to go along with Blackjack. Also, Legend of Blackjack is technically, as of right now, a standalone. He's got a companion novel, but it's not a series technically. So if you're looking for a great standalone that's a quick, fun read, Legend of Blackjack by A.R. Witham. Okay, our next matchup is The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden versus Disney After Dark by Ridley Pearson. This one is an automatic move on for The Girl in the Tower for 5 out of 5 stars. End of the road for Disney After Dark. This was a fun book. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I read this series out of order, so there were some issues that I had with certain books that were resolved in other books, and that was the problem for Disney After Dark. It didn't feel as exciting as some of the other books, and the theme felt a little worn down and done over. So I only gave that 3 out of 5 stars, but what a great run for Disney After Dark to make it this far. Next up we have The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams up against The Embroidered book by Kate Hartfield. This is another 5-star matchup. And you know what, y'all? I think I'm going to give this one to The Embroidered book by Kate Hartfield because this book was something different than anything I'd ever read, and it made me want to read more historical fantasy like this, and it made me want to reread the book to unpack all the stuff that I missed. Whereas The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was absolutely fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was hilarious, unforgettable, exactly what I needed at the moment, but maybe not every moment I need Hitchhiker's Guide. Our next matchup is Red Rising by Pierce Brown versus Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Reich Peterson. This is an automatic move on for Waking Ursa Minor. Moving on to the next round with 5 out of 5 stars for that. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This book I enjoyed more than I actually thought I was going to. It's kind of a YA science fiction, a little bit of fantasy maybe thrown in there. It was a slow start and it read a bit young, YA-ish, even though I don't know if it was technically, I say it was YA, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if it was technically marketed as YA, so it felt a bit younger than I was expecting, but it had great storytelling and I can't wait to read the rest of this series. Our next matchup is The Last Man by Mary Shelley up against the Folklore of Discworld, legends, myths, and customs from Discworld with helpful hints from planet Earth. This is another 5-star matchup and this one is a tricky one for me. I think I'm going to move on The Last Man by Mary Shelley because this was a post-apocalyptic novel with science fiction, and the depth of Mary Shelley's writing is just phenomenal in here, and the way that she conveyed emotions to her readers and the desperation that you felt reading this was unlike anything I'd have ever read in a post-apocalyptic novel before. So Mary Shelley moves on for this round and will say so long farewell to the Folklore of Discworld. This was such a fun book and it made me want to continue reading the Discworld series. You had all of the quirk of Discworld with science, mythology, and Sir Terry Pratchett himself. It was a great read. I highly recommend it to anyone who loves Discworld, wants to learn more about Discworld, and the inspirations that came for that series, but end of the road for Discworld. Our next matchup is Ink and Bone by Rachel Caine up against Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This one is another automatic move on for Jonathan Strange with 5 out of 5 stars. But Ink and Bone by Rachel Caine, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved this book. I loved the story and the characters and the ideas that were portrayed in this. But I wanted more of it, which is great because we have a series for it, but I wanted more in that book itself. I didn't want the book to end, which is usually a good thing. In this case, it knocked it down a point. So, end of the road for the Ink and Bone. Our next matchup is 12 Blades in Contempt by Jordan Darrett versus The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is an automatic move on for The Bear and the Nightingale with 5 out of 5 stars. End of the road for 12 Blades in Contempt, but y'all, what a great debut book this was, with an excellent plot, good characters, good moving action, great action scenes. This felt like kind of a YA version maybe of Jade Legacy, the Green Bone Saga. It had that similar type of feel. I highly recommend 12 Blades in Contempt if you're looking for Asian-inspired fantasy with some military in there. It had inspirations from the Poppy War and Rage of Dragons, and it was just really well written. So congratulations, Jordan Darrett, on a fantastic book. Our next matchup includes The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden versus The Collected Schizophrenias by Esme Wei-Yun Wang. This is another 5-star matchup. Oh my gosh, this is so hard. I'm going to give this one to The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden and say that I absolutely loved The Collected Schizophrenias. I thought it was really well done, really well put together. I learned so much from it. Felt like it was accessible without dumbing down. It was just absolutely fantastic. If you want to learn more about schizophrenia and mental illness in general, I highly recommend this essay collection, The Collected Schizophrenias. Alright, our next matchup we have The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum versus, Razorblade Tears by S.A. Crosby. This is another 5-star matchup. A really hard one for me, but appropriate that these are matched up because these two were both Wine and Crime Book Club books of the month. Wow, this one is so hard. I think I'm going to give this one to Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, which was also a book from my book My Boyfriend Gave Me series, because I got this while I was with John at the bookstore. So that moves on, and this is The End of the Road for the Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. But y'all, this book was incredible. Definitely one of the best books that I have read this past year. And if it went up against almost any one of these other books that I listed, then I would say it moves on. It was great writing, emotional story. It was just so well done in intertwining the thriller aspect with the literary fiction, with the musical aspect, just unlike anything I'd ever read before. Well done, Brendan Slocum, and I can't wait to read the next book. Something about I forget the title, something symphony. But well done to The Violin Conspiracy, another book that I talk about all the time. Our next matchup, we're coming down to the last sets. The Seventh Cadence by Jim Wilborn up against Augustus by John Williams. This is an automatic move on for Augustus with 5 out of 5 stars. And sadly, The End of the Road for Seventh Cadence by Jim Wilborn, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so close to being a 5-star read. I bet on a reread it will become a 5-star read. This book had amazing world building in it, great characters, and just a fantastic start to the series. I did a live show with Jim Wilborn all about this book and his next book that came out, the novella, The Strangers in a Promised Land, which we heard about before. Just absolutely fantastic book, The Seventh Cadence by Jim Wilborn. Okay, our next matchup, The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson versus Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. Another 5-star matchup. These are becoming harder and harder as we move on. I'm gonna say, while I loved Interview with the Vampire, I'm gonna move The Space Between Worlds on because that book I just can't stop thinking about. Interview with the Vampire swept me away in the story, in the romance of the vampires, everything that happened in it, and I loved it more than I thought I did. And I had a great time doing a comparison video of the book to the TV series to the movie. I'll link that down below in case you're interested in that. I absolutely loved that, and I am hoping to read more of this series this year sometime when my TBR lightens up a little. Did give it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved everything about it. It was so fantastic. In one of the original vampire stories. But end of the road for Interview with a Vampire. Our next matchup includes The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss versus Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. This is an automatic move on for The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter with 5 out of 5 stars. And The End of the Road for Her Body and Other Parties. I honestly didn't expect this one to get as far as it did because it was just so weird, so crazy, so spooky. But I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it's made it this far. It's got excellent writing. The actual writing, the prose of these stories were really, really well done. This is one of the weirdest books that I've read ever, also last year. It was so weird, but it definitely had lasting images in my head. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not sure. But End of the Road for Her Body and Other Parties. Next up, we have Just Last Night by Mary McFarlane versus Middlegame by Shauna McGuire, another 5-star matchup. This one, as much as I love Just Last Night, I have to give it to Middlegame because that book blew me away. Just Last Night, this book, I went in expecting a cute romance, which we had, but we also had so much more than that. It tackled loss and grief and love and friendship, abuse and family and dementia and Alzheimer's, and was just so well done. I couldn't not give it 5 out of 5 stars, but it doesn't stand up against Middlegame. Our second to the last matchup is The Fortunes of Perkin and Warbec versus Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is an automatic move on for Guns of the Dawn with 5 out of 5 stars. And The End of the Road for Fortunes of Perkin Warbec, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. So very nearly 5 stars. This was another book by Mary Shelley. This is a great historical fiction book. It felt a bit melodramatic at times, and it was hard to follow all of the characters because there were so many, which is why I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. But despite those 2 flaws, I still loved it so much. It was not a 4-star book, but not quite a 5-star book, so that's where it fell with 4.5 out of 5 stars. And our last matchup of round 3 is House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig versus Jade War by Fonda Lee. This is another 5-star matchup. And this one, some may be surprised by this result, but I think I'm going to give this one to House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig and say, because we already have Jade Legacy moving on from Fonda Lee. Jade War was book 2 in that series. It was great. It was fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The writing was absolutely phenomenal. I didn't want to stop reading it, but I felt like Jade Legacy was even better than Jade War. So I'm moving on Jade Legacy, ending Jade War here. And also, you know, there's something special about the House of Salt and Sorrows that I felt like it needed to move on. So our top 16, the Sweet 16, will take place next week. Tune in for those results. As always, let me know in the comments below, what decisions did you agree with? What did you not agree with? What would you have done different? What surprised you out of this round?